All right, guys, we're taking another trip back to Wyoming with my new friend Scott Reekers. Here we go. There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Western Huntsman Podcast. This is Jim Huntsman, your host, and I'm coming at you hot and heavy right here from Clark Fork, Idaho. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Got a really good episode lined up for you. We've had a lot of guests from Wyoming on lately, which is always fun for me because Wyoming has a soft spot in my heart. So this week I've got my new friend Scott Reekers from Eastmans TagHub. He's a publisher. You do all sorts of stuff. Scott, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. It's great to be here.
I appreciate you joining me. And thanks for dealing with my little delay this morning.
Oh, not an issue. We deal with that all the time. You know, it's life and it gets busy.
Mondays can either be like totally non-active, just dead, or they can be complete chaos. There never seems to be like this in between for me. And so I don't know if that's how it is for you, but it was insane this morning.
It's definitely been it's going to be a fast and crazy Monday here, and I like starting off the week that way, and then we can get the pace going, and hopefully have a really productive week.
Yeah.
But I don't mind the Monday where I can actually think about what I have going on rather than just my calendar telling me exactly where I have to be and what I have to do.
Yeah. I live by the calendar anymore. It's funny when I think about it too, because I'm not like a super organized person. I never have been. And but you get to a point in life where I really depend on that thing, or I would flat out forget. I would forget exact times when I set up to record podcasts. I've got stuff with my day job that I live by that thing.
Absolutely, and it's a blessing and a curse by far. It's crazy that our calendars dominate our lives so much, but at the same time, it's an incredibly useful tool. And in the space we're talking about, it allows me to book out time where I make sure that I don't double book myself, when I want to go on a hunt or things like that. So that's incredibly important. Do
you actually put your hunts into your calendar?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, we had to start doing it a few years back because there were enough of us that between the two, we've got Eastmans Hunting TV here that's been on the Outdoor Channel since I believe '99, and launched Beyond the Grid TV here. 2016, I believe. So we've had that going for a little while, and because of everybody going in different places, we all had to sit down and actually plan and make sure we knew where cameras were going, and if it was a hunt that we were planning on filming, we had to be very intentional with it. And so it's a good thing. But it does make it nice when you don't have to bring a camera along, because you could actually just really just have that trip with dad, so to speak. I have a few of those hunts every year. I make sure I take them so that it never becomes work, because if it becomes work, then it's not nearly as much fun.
Totally, man. I learned that from I don't know if you know this. I used to play in a band, and I was the front man in this kind of like country rock band. We toured all over the place playing. And that's what happened. I went from I loved playing music, especially in front of a crowd and all this stuff, to it became this job that they would like book us through hunting season, and I wouldn't ever get a hunt. I never got to fish. I was constantly on the go with this band, and that's kind of what killed it for me. I was like, you know what? This is not the life I want. It turned it into a job, and it like kind of killed my love for playing music. So Yeah, I would never want hunting to get like that.
So, well, that's funny. I did not know you were in a band.
Yeah,
So,
back in the
well,
day.
that's cool.
Yeah, that's why I don't remember half of my 20s, man. So
that's funny.
Yeah.
So, well, sometime off script, I'll have to tell you. I own a Gibson J40, so music is a big part of my life too. So,
right on. Right on.
That's not Western hunting, so I won't drag you down that path yet.
Well, there's ways to incorporate it, Scott. I always take my guitar when I'm going to elk camp or something, and there's nothing better than playing around a campfire, and that's where I still love music. But I really got out of it because of that, like you said, just turning it into a job. So you're down, you're in Powell, Wyoming.
Yep, we are in Powell, Wyoming. We joke that we can see Yellowstone from here, and so it's a cool area to live. I enjoy where it is. Now the winters can be brutal. They can be long, and we're still getting snow, and while we're recording on the 2nd of May. So
like up in the high country or down in town.
We actually had some down in town last week.
Oh wow!
So everything that hit the Black Hills hit us first. So we didn't get quite as much as they did, but we definitely got some. So high country got a lot more, but we definitely had some. There were more than, I get up before work and go work out at the gym, and there was more than one morning where I'm walking out to my vehicles and I'm walking through a skiff of snow.
Oh yeah. That I think your winters are a little worse than mine. We had snow on Easter, but that was the last time down here. But I still can't get to my my bear hunting spot because of the dang snow. It's still covered the road. Now, so just so people know, like Powell is what, 20 minutes out of Cody, 20, 30 minutes or so?
Yep.
I used to love that drive between Cody and Powell. I used to see these monster whitetail out in the agricultural fields out there, the farm, or I don't know what the hell they're growing there, but the whitetails loved it. Are they still out there, those huge whitetails that just kind of hang out?
They're, so it's a type 3 license here. Very low odds, even for residents. It's actually low odds.
Oh, really?
But it's gotten to, so there's a general tag for residents. And so you can hunt for whitetails November, basically the first 11 days of November, usually. That could change. So we'll see what the regs actually say when they come out. But there's a season that they have there. And then after that, they have the type 3, which is basically gives you the entire month of November. The proposal that's, I believe, got approved. Now, again, the final will show up in the regulations. But I believe they actually made that type 3 run all the way through December. And, I think the logic is they're really trying to hit the areas where they found CWD. They're really targeting the mule deer.
Oh, yeah.
Or not the mule deer, excuse me, the whitetail deer. And so in doing that, this particular type 3 in this region could see a lot more tags, so maybe easier to draw, but you put more pressure on them, they're either going to go a lot more nocturnal or there will be fewer of them to hunt. So we'll see. We're kind of in a weird space on that particular hunt. There were definitely big whitetails here. I've seen a few come out of this region, but we'll see what happens. The CWD discussion that we're having statewide has definitely been something that's on a lot of people's minds, and Wyoming Game and Fish is definitely trying to work through that and make sure they make the right decisions. I'm a little concerned if we do too much late season stuff. Do we really understand CWD well enough to go chasing after it with a sledgehammer?
Yeah.
We could use a fly swatter, but we're going with a sledgehammer is what I'm a little concerned about, but we'll see with time.
We're kind of dealing with the same thing in Idaho. They opened up a limited entry area. They didn't open, it's still limited entry, but there's a hell of a lot more tags this year because they found there was like 6 mule deer that had tested positive for CWD. One of the problems doing this over the phone is my phone will start beeping in when I think there's a way to prevent that, but I don't know how to do that. So anyway, what were we talking? Oh, the CWD issue. And Idaho's kind of going through the motion of, let's kill, harvest, whatever you want to call it, more deer in that area to see if we can, kind of suppress it or whatever. But I'm kind of with you where I'm not sure the information is there. And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I think a lot of people are struggling with it just because nobody really has it. It's created a lot of contention in central Idaho.
Yes.
I imagine it's the same there.
It definitely is. And the biggest issue is that, number one, and we wrote this in a blog, and let me be clear, I am not the authority that Brandon is. Brandon Mason wrote a blog for us on blog.eastmans.com. And he wrote and talked about several things because he was actually, the guy who's been our lead ad salesman for the last almost 12 years, I believe, maybe a little longer than that.
Oh, wow.
He's been here a long time. But the guy who's doing that, he's actually a trained biologist, believe it or not. And so he actually works for North Dakota Game and Fish, Mule Deer Foundation, sat on different advisory boards. So he has a lot of background in this. He's got the credentials to ask these questions. And one of his biggest concerns is that, and even doing some research for this most recent piece, how do we know that this thing is 100% lethal? Because every animal we're testing is dead.
True.
We're not catching we haven't figured out the proper way to live test in a real healthy way.
Guys, we got a little cut off where we're talking about CWD and how some of the fish and game agencies are reacting to it. And Scott was in the middle of a thought, and we kind of lost him there. So he's gonna pick that back up because that was important information.
What I'm concerned about, my biggest concern is that we're making decisions that could end up having long-term impacts. And we've got these mature animals that are the majority of what's coming through check stations. Everybody's chasing mature animals, especially in the draw areas, but also like Long Beach Region G, for example, even though it's a general area, vast majority of the people are chasing after mature bucks. And we've also got a stipulation there on antler restrictions. That's got to be a 3-point or better on one side. So therefore you're getting the older animals. Well, that creates a population set where it's majority mature animals that are getting tested. And so now we're saying, well, it's mature animals that are carrying it. Do we know that? Well, no, we don't know that. And so it skews the data, and then we struggle with the testing, not knowing exactly what we have, because everything that's getting tested is definitely dead. Mm-hmm. And so not having that live test puts our biologists in a rough spot where they're trying to make decisions, but they're stuck between the public. They want to make the right decisions. I don't know any biologist that doesn't want to make the right decisions for the big game populations. I don't know any of them that don't want healthy populations of all the animals that are under their guard. And so, they've got my respect in trying to do that, and they're balance. They're on a balancing act, and it's hard. It's not an easy thing for them to be able to do. But my biggest concern is that they might get a lot of pushback that, dude, you got to deal with CWD, and we might make decisions that we can't undo, especially based on the age of the deer that we're killing, because migrations, you kill off a whole age class, that migration knowledge is gone. Mm-hmm. And so now you've got young bucks that they've lost that migration knowledge. They travel, obviously, the mature deer travel together. So that's a problem. That's a big issue in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. Isn't there, I thought like in the Midwest or somewhere they had this pretty extensive CWD study where they were able to monitor these deer that they knew had CWD that eventually died from it. Is that not a thing, or did I hear that wrong? Because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about CWD. But and this was like hearsay from my end, so I don't know.
There have been a lot of studies done, and this is where I'll give my disclaimer, like where Brandon is our guy who's very informed on these issues because of his background, where he'll read through the biologist language and be able to talk through and speak to laymen about how this is actually working. Because that's one of the problems we have too, is that everybody, everybody inside their own little niches and job and workforce areas, you've all got your own little language that you speak. A lot of us don't like to think like that, but we do.
Yeah, for sure.
For instance, my first meeting, I sat down here at Eastmans. We have a Monday morning meeting, and I hear all these abbreviations for things in the magazine. So a hardcore field test is an HCFT. Well, to the whole world that reads the magazine is hardcore field test. Well, biologist world, there's a lot of things they've got that they speak and standards speak, but the public isn't going to understand those. So Brandon will read a report and he'll make it and interpret it for all of us. And so that's an advantage that we have in having him here on staff. Mm-hmm. But the reports that are out there, there's a lot of studies. My response probably to that particular study is we know that CWD is encouraged inside captive populations. So you've got, if they're not looking at wild animals, not able to get a wild test, that's going to be a challenge no matter what. Because CWD, we know for a fact that where the vast majority of it started being tracked, and we don't know how long this thing's existed. Just to be 100% clear, that we know that those type of tests where they're tracking it inside that kind of population, like a captive population, it's bad when that happens. I'm not in favor of game farms for that reason, because we don't know some of the long-term effects of those type of operations. And so that's what really scares me about that.
Are you talking like a high fence kind of area?
Yep. And they did. If I remember, I don't hold me to this. So your audience, please don't string me up. But because it's been a long time since I took hunter safety, and it was the first time that I actually heard about CWD. But if I remember right, the first time they found CWD was a captive mule deer that were not doing well, and then they identified it with the prion there as CWD, and that's when they started really testing for it. And it was captive mule deer, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know. I always feel there's a couple things that, and I know we're going to talk about a couple of different topics on this episode that, like, I always feel like I'm out of place with the conversation because I don't have a lot of information personally on CWD, and I think that is kind of because, where I primarily hunt, CWD is non-existent. Nobody's ever had, a deer or an elk or any kind of ungulate species that's tested positive in the units that I hunt at home. There has been, when I've hunted out of state, concern for CWD or whatever. I think I had one deer tested and it was negative. Anyway, it's not something I put a lot of effort into knowing, and so I always feel kind of dumb when I talk on the subject. But anyway, I know it's a complicated issue. I know it drives a lot of contention. There's people that they have, they're one way with CWD, and the other people that are like it's a non-issue. And I have heard that it did kind of develop in a high fence area, but I don't know for sure. I'm clueless with it. So
my take on it is that it's definitely worth tracking. It's definitely worth monitoring. It's definitely worth researching. But I do worry that, unfortunately what happens is once something becomes an issue and money becomes available, it can become an all-consuming fire. Mm-hmm. And so
hence coronavirus.
Yes. And so people are going to study it. They're going to study it to death, and they're always going to be chasing the money to be able to continue studying it, because they're just 1 year shy on their research, which, don't get me wrong, they're hardworking people. They're doing what they're doing. But then at some point we have to reach some conclusions too.
Yeah.
And that's what scares me, is that we're not getting there. And what I'd love to see is us reach some conclusions on managing it properly, and not taking the sledgehammer approach. Rather, let's use a fly swatter for flies, and let's use sledgehammer where sledgehammer's needed. But it also takes them away from researching other things, other big things that are important. So there's issues with that too. So
for sure. And I don't know. I I'm always hesitant to go down this road, but the last couple of years has made me a very skeptical kind of individual when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Yep.
And, you know,
Absolutely.
it just has. I mean, you watch, you try to digest what the media is saying and what, you know, so-called leadership is saying about, you know, the cause and effect of this and that, and then you come to find out it's just like it's not true.
Yep.
You know, and again, I'm always hesitant to go down this road. Well, that depends on the day. Sometimes I'm not. But I mean, it's just a conversation of where coronavirus came from. You know, they're talking about it coming from a damn bat, which didn't feel right in my gut. I mean, I'm no doctor.
Yep.
But something didn't add up with that. You know, especially I'm a hunter, so it just, something wasn't adding up. And then, you know, then come to find out everybody's leaning towards, no, it came from this Wuhan lab. But if you said that a year ago, you were a nut job and a conspiracy theorist. I just, like, all of that shit piles up, and now I'm like skeptical as all get out. And I don't know. We could probably have non-recorded conversations about that in greater detail.
you and me both on that. I mean, like, I will quote one of my favorite podcasters, you know, and everyone will label me a far right extremist, so I apologize, you know, if you get like banned for me saying this, but I listen to Dan Bongino fairly regularly.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and so he one of the things that he says pretty regularly is, I would rather be right than first.
Yeah.
And so he'll come on and say, hey, we're still doing research on this. I'm not reporting anything on this until we have it right. I'm probably going to be 2 days later than everyone, but some of the steps isn't adding up quite right. So we'll talk about it in 2 days. And so for me, that kind of says a lot more about probably the approach we need to take to media and things of that nature.
Isn't it interesting that somebody like him wants to take a reasonable approach to something to ensure accuracy before verbally vomiting some belief all over the place, like these mainstream media types? Just, you know, you could just feel the agenda behind what they're reporting, and then you get somebody like Dan who. Again, he wants to be accurate. This is a reasonable approach to what he's doing. He wants to have credibility, but he's the one labeled as some extremist. It's bizarre. Yeah. So, you know, I Scott, we didn't really give you a proper introduction, man. I think we got yakking.
Okay.
And
we did.
I tell everybody you're with Eastmans. And I know you're kind of on the publishing side, and you have a lot to do with TagHub. And so my ignorance is going to open a perfect segue and gate for you to kind of explain, you know, what you do at Eastmans. I think that unless people have been living in a cave in Afghanistan, we all know who Eastmans is, right?
Yes.
And so what do you do for them?
So my role is I do primarily digital media projects, including podcasts. So podcasts are they're my baby. So all the podcasts that we own, it's my responsibility to manage them, make sure they're going out in a timely fashion. Then I also do a lot of our consumer sales, which is TagHub. And then I also do the consumer sales and business development are all tied together. So that works there. So whenever there's a project you hear that we've been saying we've been working on for 2 years, chances are, especially if it's on a digital side or a digital platform, chances are my fingerprints are on it. And so that's something that I work on quite a bit. Now, Eastman's TagHub is really the fruition of 30 years of work where Guy and Ike said that, you know what, we've been doing the members research section, which is all the 11 Western states research. We have been working on that. We've been developing that. Now we want to put it in a form where people can see all of it. One of the biggest constraints we had with print was that, man, a magazine can only be so big. I can't, if I had to put all the data that I put in TagHub, we would have 200-page magazines.
Yeah, it'd be more like a book. at that
Yes,
point.
and that's just not feasible. So at first, when the members research section happened, we published the best of the best units, helped people who are really, really striving for that trophy hunt. And then over time, people started requesting that, hey, we want more. We want all the units. We want to see that. And so in March 1st, 2020, I launched TagHub, and lo and behold, the economy shut down, and I thought it was going to be like, oh man, how's this going to happen? And
all thanks to a bat in China.
All thanks to a bat in China. And so we launched TagHub, and it went over really well. We did a very soft launch with it at first because I'll call them my best of the best subscribers. They're forum members on Eastmans.com. So I launched it to them, and I let them order at a smoking deal first, and said, hey, we want you guys to really see this and get to test this out. I want your feedback, and we'll make this basically I didn't make money, on it for a year because I was like, we got to test this, and I want the best of the best, and I want the feedback from these guys. Man, they were awesome. They basically agreed to be my beta testers for about a year, and they did really well. They gave me lots of great feedback that we were able to use, like a lot of filter improvements that we made in that first year, as well as data that we wanted to make standardized and make sure that it went out the way we wanted it to go out and displayed the way we wanted it to be displayed, and things of that nature. And so then we got into our second cycle, and we really started pushing out that, okay, now we can really do some expansion of the analysis. So inside TagHub, there's a drop down where it says, gives you a list of states, and it says maps and charts. Well, maps and charts are where you can filter and you can visually display all your units. But we've got another piece that's called the expert analysis.
Yep.
Well, one of the most frustrating pieces inside TagHub was that, man, I'd write these huge things. I write the MRS for Nevada as well. And so I'd write these huge pieces for Nevada. We'd have to cut it down to fit inside the magazine. Again, page restraint, or page constraints, excuse me. And so we were able in digital form to really expand these. So like this year in Nevada, I was able to add some of my favorite units to say, hey, if you're in the middle of the road on points, these are some you should consider, just to keep your name in there and be able to work on that sort of thing. So that was a big deal. We were able to add that kind of expanded content.
Mm-hmm. The analysis part.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I believe just about everybody got some expanded content and all that expert analysis. But then on top of that, one of the other things we just found out, or that we just launched, I shouldn't say found out, but again, because of page count constraints, we'd always get these awesome stories from people, and we were never able to 100% get that entire story in there. We always had to trim them down, sometimes combine paragraphs, and our editors have been really good about making sure that people's stories get told. But sometimes you find out from a guy like, oh man, why'd you cut that, or how'd you, it's still right, but there's a little bunch of little details and descriptors. Well, now what we've done is we're able to tell that entire story.
Yeah.
And so inside the digital, you'll see there's a place where you can read the digital magazine. So we've got it there. Eventually we'll get it to look like a regular blog. But some people still like being able to flip on their computer and see that. So we've got that there. Mm-hmm. And so it's expanded. You can actually see the entire magazine, but the feature stories are expanded. And so we launched that with the sheep issue, which was 2 issues ago in EHJ. And it's been pretty cool to be able to do that, to be able to serve the customer well, to really let them tell their whole story, because that's when Mike Eastman started the magazine. That was his goal. Let this be about you and your buddies around a campfire, pretend you're telling hunting stories to each other.
For sure.
And so that was cool cool to be able to add that expanded content. But, then we said, okay, now we've got all this written content. How do we move this to the next level? And that next level we decided is, what? We've got all this video that we can put out there. And so if you don't have the ability to watch Eastman's Hunting TV on the Outdoor Channel, you can now watch it on Eastman's TagHub. And you can see all our current episodes, like what's airing on on TV is what you will find on
That's
TagHub.
on once you're signed in the read watch tab. Okay, I found it.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
on the website as we're going through this here.
Yep. Yeah, you're kind of getting a tutorial here as well.
I am, man. I need it. I need all the help I can get with this kind of technology, dude.
So we are able to do that. And so one of the things we also said is, you know what? We get these Beyond the Grid episodes. This is our web TV show that you find on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So why can't we launch these early? You know, we put them into a schedule for YouTube and things like that. Why can't we put them on TagHub, you know, say a month before? And so we've started doing that. And so I've heard rumors that we've got about 5 episodes kind of getting edited right now for Beyond the Grid. So it's going to be a pretty cool Beyond the Grid season. I'm excited to see all the content that you know, our video team, in particular Dan Picard, who's a field producer for that, in particular what they've put together. I'm really excited to see that. But TagHub will have most of those early too. So that's a pretty cool deal there. So
can I ask a question about TagHub from like a user standpoint? Benefits. It's not really off subject. I was going to say I don't mean to go off subject, but it is on target here.
Okay.
Let's say we've got a hunter that lives in the state of Idaho. I'll use Idaho because I live here. And you know, he's super enthusiastic. He goes out every season. He gets an elk every once in a while, whatever. And he's getting to the point where maybe it's time to go try some new states.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Can you walk us through somebody who, because you guys are like absorbed in this life, right?
Yep.
I mean, you're in freaking Cody Powell, Wyoming. You're right there at the epicenter of the Yellowstone ecosystem, and Montana and Idaho and Wyoming right there, and you guys, you know, do this for a living. What about the dude that is looking to, he's got the money to put in for a tag in another state, maybe Wyoming or Montana or Utah or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What is his benefit to jump in and get a membership to TagHub and find out, like, beneficially for him, the best, and I don't mean to use just him or her,
Mm-hmm.
right? I always have to clarify that or I get nasty emails. So a hunter, you know, jumps on there. Walk us through what somebody who is not absorbed to this, they've got a regular day job, but they want to go try another hunt in another state and have the highest odds to notch a tag. Does that make sense?
Yep. So where I would start is this. So, you know, get your membership. I would definitely say look into the Elite Annual because that's going to give you the most bang for your buck there. And then what happens is you'll have the magazines delivered to you year round. So it's a reminder to log in, a reminder to do your research. But we've always preached a 4-state strategy. And now I would even say with our current circumstances, I would be building even more than that because you're fighting point creep and things like that. And you're probably with the current scenario, I'll circle around to how I'm getting there here in a minute. You're going to have a lot more long shots that you're playing because of the sheer number of people that jumped in because of COVID.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what happens. It's going to take a couple more years for that all to level out. And then also, in all honesty, people are going to find out that it's expensive to be playing this in a lot of different states. But for somebody starting brand new, what you do is you buy that membership, and I would start on expert analysis on, you know, just use Wyoming as an example. I use that because Guy is so clear in writing this down. But Wyoming typically has been what we consider an opportunity state. So say you live in Idaho, but you want to create some more opportunity for yourself. What I would do is, you know, for most blue collar people, doing say 2 elk hunts a year is going to be huge. You know, so you have your home state, which is your backyard, and then you pick an opportunity state, and then you also have a state that you're only going to hunt once every 5 years, maybe 6, and then you also build up your once in a lifetime type hunt. That's usually your Arizona or New Mexico. For elk, Nevada would definitely be it. Nevada is definitely a once every 5 years for mule deer if you play it right. So it really comes down to understanding that. We'll start with the expert analysis and read each state overview and decide which states are the best for you to be in personally. And every one of them has a little bit different way they do that. For instance, Wyoming for non-residents is a straight preference point state. So you're building points, and it takes X amount of points in either the regular draw or the special draw. There are two draws. You can pay a little more money and get in on the special draw, or you can do the regular draw, which has a little bit lower odds most of the time. I've seen some years where the special had exactly the same, so you paid more for the same odds. They don't cap it on number of people getting in early, so that you could have more people apply for the special than what kind of what's planned. But like Nevada, on the other hand, I'm speaking really to what I know really well.
Sure.
But Nevada is a state where it is a weighted bonus point system. And what that means, and I'm going to say a mouthful here, and it's kind of crazy, but it makes sense when you think about it. So what happens is, say I have 10 bonus points in the state of Nevada. Well, that means the number of applications are my bonus points squared plus 1 for the year that I'm applying. So that would mean you have 101 applications in the system. Every one of those applications in Nevada's system is assigned a random number. You want low numbers in Nevada's draw system. So what happens then is your first application that will be reviewed is your lowest number. And this is per species, by the way. So you have a different application for each species. So say I want to hunt elk in the great state of Nevada, and I've got 10 points, so I have 101 applications in. So what happens then is my lowest number gets reviewed, and let's just say I was number 5. So I drew the jackpot. Mm-hmm. So that means one of the hardest units to draw currently is the Jarbridge Wilderness so it's 072 inside Nevada. It's a whole unit group. But say you draw 072. Well, that would be, you put that first. Well, that's the first one that you got there. But because I had 10 points, the system goes through my whole application. So if I'm 10 years into that Nevada system, I'm putting top-notch units on every single choice. Not just top-notch units, top-notch hunts, because there are some that have early, middle, and late. And so you have more than one opportunity to draw the same. Like, I'm going to stack my application this year for Nevada where, I've got early, middle, and late on the same unit because I really believe in a couple of the units or the unit groups. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I'm going to do it because I'm in the system a little ways. But you may as well shoot for the moon if you have no points because it's completely random based on the low number that you're assigned.
In that unit in Nevada, you mean?
On your application.
Oh, whoops. There we go. I just pulled it up.
Yep.
There we go.
Yep. So on your application, whatever application out of that 101, because you had 10 bonus points, whatever one had the lowest number, that's the one that's most likely to get reviewed. And so say you draw, then all of your, all your applications are out. So everybody's odds change after that because there's now 101 applications that left the pool. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah. How crazy is that?
Yeah, no, it's nuts. And that's why something like this TagHub is such a powerful tool because like guys like me, I don't have the patience to sift through pages and pages and pages of information and data to figure this stuff out. And so like when you guys put it all together, like it clarifies a lot of things in a very fast way for a guy like me. I was able to even learn things. I jumped on and I was going through some of the units in Idaho for some of the limited entry draw for elk. And I learned things that I thought I knew, but I was wrong about how it worked. And so that's way cool because now it makes it seem more feasible for somebody like me, because I've always been the kind of guy that's like, I've got my buddy Scott down in, Powell, Wyoming. I can call him up and be like, hey, dude, what unit should I put in for? Please do. And sometimes that works, and other times I get led astray, So this just kind of helps really dial it in so that, somebody who is like me that wants to hunt another state isn't going to end up wasting $1,000 on a tag for an area that it's just not a great unit or whatever, just getting the tag in general. Again, very basic, very elementary level kind of stuff for a lot of people that don't have the time to sift through all this information without some help. And I like TagHub because it's very specific to the 11 western states. Let's take a quick break to give our show sponsors some well-deserved love. Let's start with Scree Extreme Mountain Gear. High-performance hunting attire and gear. Scientifically tested camo patterns. Complete layering systems. And in my opinion, the finest merino wool products to keep you warm, dry, and comfortable. It's all backed by a great company. Some of my personal favorites in the Scree lineup are the hard scrabble pants for early to mid-season, and then as it gets colder, I switch to the Kodiak pants for late season. The Bridger glassing mitts are like game changers, and I love the Nebo rain gear. Scree offers great packages on the website as bundles, like the elk bundle, that will completely outfit you for your favorite hunt. Oh, and my favorite part? You won't need to refinance your house to get outfitted. Try the starter bundle for less than $500. It's an insane deal. With the VIP sizing guarantee, you can exchange something that doesn't fit for free. I just had to do this for something that I got my wife. It was a little big, so I just sent it back. They covered the shipping both ways and exchanged it for the right size. So go to screegear.com and at checkout, use promo code The Western Huntsman for 15% off and free shipping. Phelps Game Calls, one thing that I love about companies that are born out of hunting is their story. Like Phelps Game Calls, the American success story that walks us through how something started small and grew into something big. Like Phelps, he started this company kind of as a hobby in his garage in 2009. Now, a little over a decade later, Phelps is one of the premier hunting call companies on the planet for good reason. They're the most realistic calls on the market, and that is saying something. Check out the AMP lineup. For predator calls like the 3-pack POR 123 or the Fawn in Distress, check those out. Turkey calls, get a diaphragm, a pot call, or a box call, and a complete line of waterfowl calls. Hit up the website and at checkout, use promo code Huntsman10 for 10% off. Phelps Game Calls, get them close. The Elk Collective. The best investment for hunting success is what's between your ears. Having elk hunting knowledge is what separates those who succeed every once in a while against those who notch tags every year. There's a very fine line there, and there's a perfect amount of time if you're listening to this now to get through the entire course before September. Improve your chances with a virtual course of over 140 videos that cover things like how to get elk tags throughout the West, scouting and e-scouting, beginner to advanced elk calling, gear, fitness, nutrition, shooting processes, hunting scenarios, strategies, and tons more. They've got some very big names on this platform that give you their personal expertise as you go through the course. It's the best way to make you the best elk hunter as you get into the woods. So go to theelkcollective.com and use promo code The Western Huntsman for $20 off. It's normally $89, so when you use my promo code, it's going to be the best $69 you've spent on elk hunting, and I guarantee you it's worth every penny. Check it out, guys. Hoffman Boots. Let me give you guys a piece of advice from a dude with many miles on his feet. Never skimp on quality hunting boots. Hoffman Boots is a 4th-generation, family-owned company based in North Idaho. I've been sporting a pair of Hoffmans for close to a decade. Particularly, I like the Hoffman Explorer in the 8-inch. In my most humble opinion again, Hoffman offers the most comfortable hunting boot that does the least amount of damage to my feet after several miles on the mountain. Very little break-in period on these boots, by the way. I took them right out of the box and went on a crazy elk hunt, not even a blister. For hunting, they have the Explorers and the Summit boot offered in insulated and non-insulated. And ladies, check out the new women's Hoffman Explorer 400. They also carry lineman boots, winter pack boots, logging boots, and hiking boots. Get totally outfitted at hoffmanboots.com, and at checkout, as you know it's coming, use promo code, all caps lock, Huntsman10 for 10% off. Last but not least, Tacticam. If you're interested in self-filming your hunts, whether for memories or making hunting content, check out the Tacticam products like the Spotter LR, Tacticam 5.0, and the Film Through Scope system, all of which are available at thewesternhuntsman.com, which helps support our fight against the anti-hunting movement. But my favorite is the Tacticam Reveal cell cams. I use these cell cams all over my property, and I'm like obsessed with monitoring the wildlife in real time with these cameras. They not only text me instantly when a buck or a bear is cruising through, my reveals make for excellent security systems. I know when the FedEx dude is delivering packages way down at the bottom of our driveway. And I also know if some knucklehead shows up to try to steal them. I know when someone's trespassing or if I have the kind of wildlife roaming around that I don't want, like a coyote. and I quickly react with my cat-like reflexes. Great for trappers, great for hunters, security, anything, guys. Check it out at tacticam.com because I don't have the reveals on my website right now. Let them know I sent you. Tacticam.com. Let's get back to the show. Here we go.
Yes, it is very specific, and that's by design. I mean, we've talked about expanding, basically beyond what we kind of consider West and into more what's Midwest, and we haven't found a way that we feel like will be really valuable to the subscriber yet. But it's in the works because that's constantly, constantly there. But the thing is, South Dakota and North Dakota, they're very different animals than just across the border into Montana. In
like North Dakota, I don't think they even do non-resident elk tags, do they?
I don't believe they do elk tags. I'd have to ask. Brandon's actually from North Dakota, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yep. And so that was the game and fish department he worked for. But I don't believe they do non-resident. But don't quote me on that because I haven't done enough research on that state.
I'm pretty sure they don't.
So, but when you look at it from the when you look at it where they're very different animals, we want to be able to represent that visually. A big part of the maps and charts inside of TagHub is giving everyone a really good visual of what, where, and why inside the state. And that's what TagHub is really all about. And so that's where we leverage all of the experience that Guy has in writing the MRS, as well as the company history of being able to, okay, these are the numbers that really matter in these 11 Western states. And these are the things that, from do it yourself all the way to guys that run outfitted hunts, like I would encourage guys who want to do outfitted hunts to check out the unit inside of TagHub. And then don't be afraid to ask your outfitter why that was success, because he may tell you, well, yeah, I can tell you why it was successful because my private land hunt was where all the success came from, And so there's a lot of, there's a lot of things that you can validate there because a marginal hunt still probably has a 350 bull in it. It's just where,
sure. Yeah.
Is it on a private ranch, that's outfitted? Are you a guy who wants to go on outfitted hunt? That's fine, but be able to figure out what you want and do the research and understand what's there. And, the way that we've got it set up where it's a subscription, you can do the Elite Annual where it'll you buy it at the beginning of the year and then it won't hit you for another year. Or you can do it where it's just set up like your Netflix, where it just bills you each month and, you don't even have to worry about it.
And what does that cost for the monthly?
The monthly for the Elite Annual is $14.99 a month.
Oh, okay. So $15 a month.
Yep.
And that gives you access to all these states and then obviously all the content throughout.
Yep.
God, Wyoming's an interesting state, man. Your units are teeny.
It feels like it. I mean, like let me pull up Wyoming here, so I'm looking at the same map you are. It kind of just depends on. There are some that are huge.
Yeah, there is that 135 is pretty big, but.
Yep. 135 is pretty big. 131 is big. Actually 131 is it's a little bit different for elk. It's one area 100 for elk, but it's big.
I think I'm on the deer. Yeah, I am. Let me switch.
Yeah, I'm on deer too. So 135 is a big unit. 143 is pretty big. 144, that's all a region G, what you're looking at right there.
Whoops. What the heck did I do?
And so,
do you ever get down to Pinedale?
Oh yeah.
Do you?
Yep.
That's sorry, I'm looking at the map and trying to talk at the same time. It doesn't work. I love Pinedale, man. That I used to go up there and fly fish all the time.
Yep. It's a cool area.
Yeah. Is it still like growing like crazy, like the rest of Wyoming, or is it?
It is.
Has it balanced out?
It is. Wyoming's kind of funny because we get the growth that we're getting a lot of. For the vast majority is there's a lot of vacation homes in areas like that, and so there's people that they only live there a couple weeks a year, maybe.
They can't hack the winter. And the
Well,
wind.
Pinedale winter is no joke.
No,
I mean,
it's
I
not.
played hockey there growing up, and I played outside hockey at -10. And that was the high. So
My wife and I, funny story, man. We were looking at moving to Pinedale at some. This was years ago, and there she grabbed it. We were in Pinedale. She grabs a newspaper, and there's a story about some couple of kids that got kind of run over by a moose at waiting for their bus. And the moose kind of didn't really hurt them, but knocked them down and whatever, and that killed it. She's like, I'm not moving to a town where moose are attacking the kids. And now where we live, the moose are coming through all the time. Anyway,
that's funny.
Yeah, Pinedale. I wonder if those they had this like cabin hotel or motel thing in Pinedale where those little mini cabins, you can rent the cabin. Is that still there?
I believe so. There's, VRBO has opened up a lot of opportunities for people to, share their spaces and let people look at things like that. So that's definitely there. It's grown. If there's a place in Wyoming that people are developing, we're seeing a little bit of that. But, I believe our last census, we were pretty well flat. So the development that a lot of people are seeing is that it is definitely the people moving in and, making a summer home, things of that nature.
Yeah.
So
I guess I don't blame them if I had that kind of money. So here's what you guys need to do. You jump on TagHub, get you a membership, get you a tag, and stay in those little cabins in Pinedale, Wyoming. It's a pretty cool spot. They got full kitchens. A shower I barely fit in, all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm 6'5", 230, so I don't know if that would be a good deal for
me. It'd be a tight fit for you too, man. Man, that's awesome. All right, So while we're on this Wyoming topic, what? Talk to me a little bit about this corner crossing thing that we were talking a little bit before we hit record. The folks that were on trial, it just recently came out. They were found not guilty of trespassing.
Yep.
What do you think the repercussions of that are, or maybe some of the misinterpretations?
So let me be clear. Number one, I am not a lawyer, so I can't interpret all the legalities and things that are going on. There's a lot of things that I'm probably not going to understand. So the biggest thing, though, like I've written probably about half the articles that we've done on this case. I wrote them. And the biggest thing that I would say is that, man, this is complicated.
Yeah.
This is going to be a challenge for a lot of years. This is going to be talked about in courts for a lot of years, and I don't know that we're going to have an easy answer here for quite a while, because like I have to walk a tightrope because I've got a lot of friends that are landowners, and this does impact them. And then I've also got a lot of friends who are definitely public landowners, or I shouldn't say landowners, public land hunters. Okay.
Scott, what you just said there, I'm a landowner. Of course, it's very small land, but I'm struggling to find the challenge of being a landowner in terms of how it affects me. With this border crossing. So you've got, and I am super ignorant with this because I don't hunt areas like this, but I know it's all over Wyoming and Montana, and other states. This corner cross thing, first of all, it's dumb. You're like crossing in air. You're not touching anybody else's land. And so I'm struggling to find where a landowner would have some negative impact by a hunter on a public chunk of square land crossing to the next public chunk of square land. How does that affect a landowner? Is that a fair question?
Very fair. So one of the things that I've heard from some landowners talking about this is one of the temptations that's going to come is you've got, let's say, just a massive amount of checkerboard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a guy with a long range rifle could definitely shoot from one piece of checkerboard across the private back onto the public. That's kind of scary.
That could be scary. Yeah, I could see that being a problem.
So that's one piece. Then let's call human nature what it is. Is that there may be some guys who kill, they kill an elk. Let's just use an elk because they're big, they're ugly, and they're real ugly when you get them in a pack, and it's really heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And you on this corner crossing piece, you don't have 10 feet of leeway. You have to cross exactly where this is at. So after a long day of packing, how easy it would be to accidentally trespass, especially when you're having to circumvent. And so now you've got landowners who are like, well, we used to let X amount of people a year, but now I've got to go patrol, and make sure that that they're using the spaces that they're doing. So now I don't have time to, talk with the guys who normally would just, do access or do a trespass fee. I've taken the opinion that a trespass fee is a skin in the game. If you're willing to pay a landowner a trespass fee, what that says is you're willing, because you're willing to pay him a trespass fee, you are saying that I respect you enough to know that this is valuable. And that, it's like, good paperwork always makes good friends. It's the same way in my mind, in business, when you do good paperwork makes good friends. And so now what's going to happen is the ranchers they're now going to be worried about, say they've got the lease for all the BLM that's there. They're now going to be concerned and worried about all the different things that could be happening on their land. And then, could a stray bullet hit the cows? And so now they got to be out there patrolling. And now there's a ripple effect that goes now where, oh crap, these guys weren't convicted. Well, what if somebody was clearly on private land? Well, that's definitely a conviction. And so now what I'm really concerned about is that we're now going to, number one, there's going to be a lot of people who really, this case did not set precedent. It did not, like, it's very clearly does not set precedent. The one that could maybe set some precedent is the civil case that actually went to the federal level. Mm-hmm. If that gets discussed, there could be some working up the chain that does that. But usually landowner rights are a state level issue. Mm-hmm. And so we're talking about some muddy water here.
Let's clarify what you mean, Scott, by it didn't set precedent, just because I think that's a super important point. What Scott's saying, guys, is these guys may have gotten a not guilty verdict in this particular case does not mean that you can go cross a corner and get the same outcome, right? So that's I just want like total clarity on that, because you know how people are, right? We're hunters. we're going to take advantage where we think we can if there's game over there.
Yep. And so definitely, especially like because this is happening in Wyoming, be very careful with corner crossing, and make sure you know where you stand all the time. I'm not going to say, hey, go corner cross, guys, because you're going to get off. That's not the case. You get one boot print, even like slightly on the landowner's property, and the way that it works, it's a 3-dimensional thing. Like your property goes 500 feet into the air, and so that's where this contention is. Like that, these guys, they cross the corner, and in crossing the corner, they actually crossed into the airspace of the landowner. Well, a jury in Wyoming did not convict them of trespassing, but there's no footprints on the landowner's space, so the jury was kind of saying no harm, no foul, But what does Wyoming law say? And that's still what's going to be argued about in court.
On the civil side, you mean?
On the civil side, and I'm betting there's going to be legislation that gets brought up and talked about. I don't have any insider baseball on that, but it'd be crazy to think that this isn't getting talked about in legislative sessions here in the very near future, because what's probably going to happen is landowners are going to talk to a lot of state senators and be like, look, hey, we need some clarification on this, because we thought we knew and understood, but we don't. And then public land hunters are saying the same thing. Hey, we thought, this is public land. It's technically touching. Why can't we hunt it? So there's going to be a lot of conversation back and forth. In my perfect world, we have every respectful hunter be able to access the public land and, not trespass and doesn't do anything crazy to a landowner's property, and I hope that's the case moving forward into the future. And I hope this doesn't get ugly, where
that's
where
what
there's
I'm worried
stupid
about.
People doing stupid things. Yep, that's
what I'm worried about, because I feel like, okay, everybody's posting about, big win for public land. Well, is it? Because so we get this not guilty verdict.
Yep.
How are landowners going to respond to in terms of pressuring legislators to make changes to this? And I want to start. Before I go there, I think the whole thing is dumb. The fact that you can't just step over a corner, whatever, that's dumb in itself. The other part that's really dumb with this is, how did it even become this checkerboard ownership thing? Like, you've got public land totally surrounded by these privately owned parcels that are surrounded by these public, like how does it even become that? Who designed that shit show? It just seems stupid, and maybe it's just because it's so foreign to me. We don't have that in my neck of the woods, and I just can't imagine how it even came to how that was set up. Does that make sense? Maybe you can shine some light.
Yeah, it was railroad. So when the railroad came, when they came through, so if you look at, like, just say southern Wyoming, like right along the interstate, the railroad also works that, and so the railroad was given every other section. And so the government retained the rest of it. And so there are certain sections, like I'll use, well, here's another piece of the equation that, like, Southwest Wyoming enjoys a wonderful relationship with, that I believe it's like, you look on a map and you can see that all over Southwest Wyoming, there's different cattle associations. I know of two of them. One of them you don't have to get a permit, and one of them you do have to get a permit to go across their land, and you don't pay for it. You just go, like, they have a guy that's there and he gives you the written permission. But the reason those landowners gave the written permission was because they didn't want anti-hunters on there. And so they wanted to check every hunter. Something like this could change those relationships, and I don't want that. Like, that's, there's ripple effects to all these things, and so it's a very delicate balance where I want the public land hunters to have access to as much public land as possible. And then I also want, I want landowners to feel valued and respected. And I want the sportsmen to treat them with respect too, and I hope this doesn't push divides further, and I may not have as nearly a popular opinion as the, big win for landowners. That's why I've tried to report it as, this is what's happened. Because it's, it is complicated. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of feelings. Super
complicated. And I think a lot of the complication, or actually the emotions and the contention, it comes out of a lot of, there are a lot of people that have had no background in, farming, ranching, or the agricultural side of it, to where there may be a slight misunderstanding as to what happens when you own this land and people take advantage. And I guess one way to explain it is, like, as a kid growing up, my grandpa was a cattle rancher, sheep farmer down in central Utah, and one of the things that would happen during, I think it was pheasant season, these hunters would go onto his land, and he allowed it, right? This is back in the day when all the hunters were like, all the landowners were like, yeah, come hunt pheasants on the land. No big deal. Just, make sure you're not leaving a mess and leaving gates open, kind of thing.
Yep.
But there were a few, and it happened quick, within 3 years. At one point, one of his cows got shot by a shotgun, which didn't do a lot of damage, but there's
still
lead.
Annoying.
Yeah. Another time, the hunters shot, and it actually scared the cattle. They were so close to the cattle that they ran through and broke through the corner of a fence and got out into a pasture they weren't supposed to be in, which was growing alfalfa. That was a problem. And so for somebody that's never been exposed to something like that, what happens is that is to a farmer or a rancher who runs on very minimal and limited profit margins, that is thousands and thousands of dollars when that happens, something like that happens. So it's not like just an inconvenience. Another time, a barn was somehow caught on fire. That was luckily able to get put out fairly quickly, but it still cost thousands of dollars in damage to this barn, to include some of the hay that was stored inside of it. And so those are some of the. So I guess I'm talking to folks that have never been on that land ownership side or exposed to it through like family or a ranching operation or something like that. I could see how it would be super annoying to be like, gosh, why don't they just let everybody come onto the land and access it, and they're selfish and they shouldn't own that much land and all that kind of stuff. But from when you kind of, if you could take yourself out of that and look at from a different perspective as to put yourself in their shoes. You own a ranch. Maybe you have 100 head of cattle. You don't really make money. Your job is to break even. And if anybody's watched that really popular show Yellowstone, Kevin Costner talks about it, right? In that, it's the only industry where the goal is to break even. You don't really make a lot of money, but it is super easy to lose money. And it's small things like cows breaking through a fence and eating and tearing up an alfalfa field that they're not supposed to be in is thousands and thousands of dollars that is not budgeted or there for that rancher. It's just not planned for. So your whole year is shot. Hopefully that helps some people understand that side of it. Not that I don't have like super strong opinions on corner crossing one way or the other, but I do think it's dumb that people can't just traverse to the other corner. But I also see the landowner side of it.
And the craziest part is this, is like, you're literally wanting to go over a space that's about the size of a nail. When you actually think of like where these four corners meet on these sections, you're going over an incredibly small space. And so the likelihood that you step on someone's property is actually fairly high. The guys in this case, they actually made a device that was like a ladder that crossed over, which guaranteed they would not touch it. But is that going to be like, is everybody going to be hauling ladders around public land now?
I know.
Is that like, this is, like I said, there are ripple effects to this. And I'm in support, and I don't want anyone to think I'm not in support of having access to our public lands or anything like that. I'm 100% in favor of that, but I also have to be really clear. There are ripple effects, and there are people who, that this does negatively affect. Do I wish it were a little easier to grant access for the public to some of this checkerboarded stuff? Absolutely. And I think that was the intent of, like Wyoming's walk-in areas and hunter management areas, where, I know specifically they target ranches that have a lot of landlocked property so that they can basically double their money, so to speak, as far as access goes, and really try and help out. And again, like, for some of the ranchers, they don't want, they don't have a desire to outfit their property, which they do. That's your, that's your call if you want to outfit, but as far as like the way that they target those things, they intentionally try and find places that open up even more opportunity, like the best bang for that money use. And, it can be a challenge. So sometimes where you're having to find areas that aren't as great a habitat, but you're opening up areas, And so that's, just to provide opportunity and places for people to go. So it's challenging. It's, there's no one size fits all solution to all of this. It's what I'm the most worried about is the art of civil dialogue dying in these things. And that concerns me more than anything else. Being able to come to the table, be reasonable on all sides of the equation, and understand that, that there are a lot of people who want to use a public land, and there are explicit rights of the private landowner, and both should be respected.
For sure. I feel like. Go ahead.
I just hope that we don't lose that, especially when especially when, knowing all the crazy that is out there and the crazy that doesn't want us hunting. Um, a lot of ranchers don't hunt, but a lot of them also do.
Mm-hmm.
And in so doing, you want to make sure you respect both sides of that, because at the end of the day, it's the people who don't want meat that are our issue, for both sides.
Yep.
And fighting amongst ourselves on those particular issues, that does not help us. And so I just don't want to see civility lost because we're not thinking straight.
No, that's a great point, because I do think that that's something that we might miss in the grand scheme of things, that the ally of what these landowners can be to hunters in the scheme of, like the Cattlemen's Association helped the state of California go to bat for the spring bear hunts, or I'm sorry, the bear hunts, the spring bear is Washington issue. So you if you just try to be as hunters go at that alone against these far left, anti-hunting, extreme vegan, whatever, these, Humane Society of the United States, and they're in California coming at hunting bears because it emotionally charges them, and they want to see it end, and it's just the millions of dollars behind the Humane Society of the United States coming at hunters. Hunters don't stand a chance. But when we can, what happened in California is they were able to get, like, the Cattlemen's Associations of California, whatever those are called. I'm not totally sure. But and the agricultural associations, and they all kind of banded together with hunters to make a case that bear hunting is critical to keep the predation off of these cattle ranches and things like that. And that's kind of what helped win the day. And I'm talking about the one from 2 years ago, not this one that just got a couple weeks ago. 2021, or was it 20? Gosh, man, all my years are starting to run together. I'm getting old. Anyway, that's the point with that. I do think that there is some silliness in terms of, I agree with your sentiment. We don't want to, we want some civil discussion and some solutions that can be had. It seems silly to me that there hasn't been some solutions put forth, like, is there some issue with a landowner taking his square? Let's say he's got this one square, and then just north of him is a public chunk, and then to the right of him is a public chunk, but to the northeast of him is his land as well. Like, why can't they just come to an agreement and swap those on the north end, so that he owns consecutive chunks and there's two consecutive chunks of public? I know that's super complicated, but it's really not. And it's like, unless that is super high producing land for grazing cattle, and the other side to the left isn't. But I mean, it's not like we're talking about a major landscape change here. It can't be that different. I don't know. I feel like there's solutions, and I think you made a good point by, if we stay on the civil side, those solutions can be had.
So the problem with, you got two things with land swaps, and I am not the expert on land swaps, but every time I've heard a conversation about why they do or don't happen, there's two pieces to this equation. Government has a net neutral acquisition policy, so the government tries not to possess more land, as a general theory. That's why you see things turned into nature conservancies and things like that, or like the state of Wyoming doesn't like to acquire a ton of land, because then they have to manage it, and so they try and do things where they can open it up without the state actually owning it. But there's a whole slew of reasons. It's not just
aren't these checkerboard lands mainly BLM, like federally owned?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so I can, having grown up in Southwest Wyoming, where there's a lot of it that we were granted access to, where we could go ride our four-wheelers across all the time, never an issue. In saying that, there's a lot of variety in that. So what happens when you start getting into big land swaps is it's really hard to get into agreement on the values of the land being the same.
Gotcha.
And so that's why they're complicated. They take years. And then what you find out is that There's some family from wherever they've camped on such and such side for so many years, and pretty soon you got 15 families you find out they camp on the area that's about to be swapped, and so it's just a very it's just a very hard. It's very hard to get land swaps to go through. Where it typically works is not necessarily areas that are checkerboarded, but where you've got like Northeast Wyoming, I know has had some land swaps work out. And generally speaking, what'll happen is you'll have a big section of land that was like way landlocked or didn't have a public easement. And a rancher says, hey, this has the same value for what I've got right next to here, but it makes monetary sense in some other way. They don't have to get grazing permits or traveling grazing permits, all these different things to access some of the land that they've got. So they'll propose a land swap for something that's like right next to a highway or a public easement. Sometimes those will happen. But that they're tough to make go through. Like I said, I am not an expert. Those are the very surface level conversations I've heard and been a part of.
You're definitely on top of this a lot more than I am. I mean, you could see, my level of knowledge on the checkerboard landscape is pretty limited. Obviously, that's why I'm asking dumb questions. But that's normally what I do. I like to ask dumb questions because I genuinely don't know much about it. So it's good to have these conversations and shed some light on it. But Scott, I know we started a little late. I feel like I'm keeping you long. You'd mentioned something about having to be out of here by now. Should we wrap this up by coming back to this TagHub conversation?
Absolutely.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I feel like we had a little delay there.
Oh, you're good.
The Eastmans TagHub. Basically, guys listening, I'm going to give you my quick little analysis here, and then Scott is going to be able to come in and correct me. But if you guys sign up for this, what this is it's going to really help you plan your hunts, get the tags that you want, get the tags in the right areas that are going to give you the highest odds. It's the kind of tool that I feel like it's a game changer, first of all, because you don't have to go through like the old-fashioned way and look at maps and draw all this out to determine where your best odds are. The information is just all packed right here into this website. Without trying to make this a big commercial for it, I think it's, for any Western hunter, a pretty critical tool, especially if you're looking to hunt out of state. But even if you are hunting in state, like I got on my the Idaho map, and I don't remember if it was in the map or the analysis section, but I found out some harvest data that is a little bit different than what the Fish and Game put out in terms of it's a lot more in depth. And it gives you percentages and all sorts of things that tell me, okay, it actually, I don't want to give the units away, but I figured out, okay, I hunt a lot there, and that's why I never cut a tag in that area, but I do hunt a lot over there, and that's why I end up usually with bulls screaming in my face. And that it makes sense. Anyway, I learned it on TagHub, and I've only had it for like 2 days. So that's my assessment of it. I think that it's a critical tool for any serious hunter. It's even if you're like a semi-serious, you're like, oh, I didn't know it did this too. See, when I talk, and it'll give you grizzly information and wolf information and drought information. Okay, so that's something I just learned by messing with it while I'm yakking. Super cool, man. Why don't you kind of fill in what I'm missing there?
Man, you've really hit it all. That there's a lot of power, like when you're doing the primary filter, make sure you change out the themes, because you can see a lot of different data. You can do it, you can manipulate it, you can change your settings. And so, and color, we're I know the vast majority of hunters are men. I apologize to the ladies that are on here, but men are visual creatures, and we like to be able to see, light up the colors, and you can really find out why you did or didn't draw. You can filter it by, you can do a theme where there's pressure, like hunting pressure, which units or areas have the worst hunting pressure and why. And so there's a lot of things that you can do there that really take your hunting to the next level. Brian Barney, our podcast host, he says next level hunting all the time. And so that's something that we've kind of adopted. And so you can really take your research to the next level with this tool. And we have a lot of cool things coming in the future. So, stay tuned. The $14.99 a month is pretty mindless. It's just like your Netflix subscription, and to make sure that you never miss out on magazines, which that's a big deal, being able to do that. And we're constantly going to be updating it. I can't let the cat out of the bag too far, but when I say cool stuff is coming, we have some really, really, really cool updates coming that are going to make this even more intuitive and more feeling.
Are you going to leave me hanging, man? Are you going to give us the slightest hint?
Nope, I can't.
Dang it.
Can't yet, because I'm still in development phase, but I'm at the point now where I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, so I can start patting our own back that we're really, really coming out with some cool things.
This little grizzly analysis thing is super helpful, man.
Yes, it is.
That is like okay, that makes sense as to why. Well, let me put it to you this way. I am not going to that unit that I'm looking at in Wyoming. I deal with enough grizzly bears where I'm at. I'm going to go back to the Idaho and turn that on. That's really cool.
And
go ahead.
I'll say this. With our grizzly bear, I'm going to be updating some of that data, because what it's got is that's got core area on there where it's for sure. They are absolutely there. I'm going to be updating with some more data that shows a bit more expanded where, okay, they're there, but they're not as heavy as, say, like Park County, Wyoming.
Yeah. That makes sense. It's that sucks. I'm looking at the Idaho one. It like literally the property where I live right now is in the grizzly, like right on the border too. So, which I already knew, but you always kind of hope, because I don't like grizzly bears, man. I just don't like them. And every year I'm like, it's reinforced.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah.
They're just bullies.
They are bullies. They are bullies. Well, they just, we won't get into that whole. I bring it up like every podcast. Like, we need a hunting season on them, because I think it'll scare them a little bit, and keep them at bay. But no, this TagHub, dude, this is like a work of art, man. I can't believe all the information that's in it, and the potential that anybody can. I mean, this is like almost cheating when it comes to getting a tag. This is great.
So I set up a promo code for your listeners. It's just all uppercase Huntsman.
Oh, cool.
So there's a discount code for it. I believe I took 20% off. So you get that on your first order, or if you do an elite annual, it'll take it off. So the elite annual is $149.99, save $30 a year off of the monthly, and I'll take an additional 20% off if you use the code Huntsman.
Man, that's a pretty good deal. That's a smoking deal. Guys, that is super cool. I didn't know he was doing that before you just heard that there's a promo code for it. So I will throw that in the show notes. It's all caps lock Huntsman.
Yep.
All caps. Cool. I appreciate that, man. Scott, this has been an awesome conversation. I really feel like we just kind of scratched the surface of a lot of stuff that we can go into detail on. So I think we're going to have to do this again.
Hey, let's do it again. Absolutely.
I really enjoyed it. So let's plan on that. And guys, check out. I'm going to have all of the links right there in the show notes for TagHub and Eastmans Journal. And Scott, do you want what's your Instagram or social media stuff?
My Instagram is eatingthewild_EHJ. But I'm somewhat active on there, so definitely follow Eastmans Hunting Journals at Eastmans Elevated, at Beyond the Grid TV. Those are the company pages. Social media is actually part of my department. I've got a young man who actually runs all that. I used to do all the social media, but I've handed it off to him. He's got a great creative spirit and loves to do that. He is absolutely killing it on our social media. So it's very cool.
You better be careful. I might have to hire him. I'll poach him out of you. Just kidding.
No, please don't.
All I could do is I could just offer him like free beer every once in a while. So I don't have the budget.
Well, that would cripple me to lose him. So he does awesome work for us here at Eastmans.
No, that's great, man. Again, I appreciate you coming on, dude. Great talk, guys. I encourage you to jump on and check out at least give this TagHub thing a consideration, because I like I said in the beginning, it's a total game changer, especially for me. I am in my early 40s. I've been hunting for a long time, and that is basically when you've got somebody that's been doing this as long as I have, jumps on there and learns a ton of information. I promise you. If especially you younger guys, this will shave years off of your research. So I hope that made sense the way I put that. I keep trying to talk and read at the same time, but Scott, thanks again, man. This was awesome.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
You made it all the way to the end. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. We sure appreciate your support. This is Jim Huntsman signing off and reminding you to check us out at Instagram at The Western Huntsman and on Facebook at The Western Huntsman. And you can also check out the website at thewesternhuntsman.com. Thanks again. We'll see you guys next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you on the mountain.